Hello, I'm Ed Magoni. This is Zach Osterman. We're here for the Inside Indiana Report. And we just finished up watching the first open media practice of the season. Well, it wasn't so much the full practice, but we saw a lot of stretching and some drills being run. And we're here to talk defense today. We talked offense after the media day press conferences. We're here to talk offense tonight. And any impressions from what you saw? I know there wasn't much to see, but anything you could pick up on?
Maybe not so much from the practices. I mean, I think it was interesting to see all the guys out there. I know that particularly this freshman class is expected to compete pretty quickly for playing time. And you saw a lot of the corners working together. You saw a lot of the linebackers working in with pretty much everybody else. I mean, it's kind of hard to draw conclusions from the first 25 minutes of practice, but it was more interesting to hear the coaches kind of talking today. It sounds like a lot of guys feel good about their units, but they really don't know where pieces are going to fit yet. They just kind of feel good about the raw materials that they have. I know that the Britt Dearson talked about that, the defensive line coach, and certainly I know Mike Eckler's really high on his two senior linebackers, Leon Beckham and Jeff Thomas, but doesn't quite know where that third linebacker is going to come from yet. And then a lot of guys moving from safety to corner or corner to safety in the secondary this offseason. So again, I think Doug Mallory and Brandon Shelby both really like what they've got there, but they're not really sure where guys are going to fit just yet. So it seems like a lot of optimism, but it's still a pretty open position, sort of an open two deep across the board.
From your interviews today, who do you think is the front runner for that third linebacking position?
Eckler wouldn't give a name, and I think it's in part because I don't think he wants to anoint anybody, and I think it's in part because I legitimately am not sure they have a third guy yet. Chad Shearer, I think, is the one returning with the most experience. He mentioned even Brandon McGee in the context of talking about someone who he's tried to sort of encourage to be a leader in the offseason. Zach Shaw is an incoming freshman, was one of the most well-regarded recruits in the last recruiting class. I think that Eckler expects him and Kyle Kennedy and Mike Replogle all to fight for time there. But it sounds like they're really not ready to even sort of name names in that third position yet.
Well, the big part about this is you have to earn a position. That's been the general consensus among all the coaches. You hear that a lot. As far as the freshman or redshirt freshman, who do you see perhaps making the two deep or even working into a starting job?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely mention all three of those linebackers. Eckler talked about today the big problem he said with freshmen is mostly just that you don't when you're one of the best players on your team, particularly on defense and at linebacker, you don't really learn as well in high school how to have a full practice because you're always one of the best guys in there, and freshmen need to learn how to be getting better when they're in the meeting room, how to be getting better when they're getting reps in practice, and how to be getting better when they're watching others get reps in practice, and that's something he thinks these guys need to work on. But I'd throw them in there. I know Brandon Shelby expects all three of his corners, his freshman corners, to compete. Honestly, right now, I wouldn't put it past any freshman to get in there. But I would say those three linebackers and then the three freshman corners, I think, are guys you could be hearing about going into the fall.
Do you foresee a improvement in the secondary? Obviously, they've had a lot of struggles last season, a lot of injuries, but also a lot of just missed tackles and blown tackles. And do you see improvement coming there, even though they're thinking about starting with some younger guys?
Yeah, I mean, I think it'll be interesting. Certainly Doug Mallory has a nice pedigree. He's the co-defensive coordinator, and he's also the safeties coach. He's worked with some really good safeties at LSU and Craig Steltz and LaRon Landry. And I think it really also helps to have Brandon Shelby in the fold as a cornerbacks coach specifically. He talked today about how in some of his previous stops he's just been a defensive backs coach. He's not been a cornerbacks coach. And having a position coach for the safeties and a position coach for the corners helps, because the safeties in particular, he said, usually need a lot of attention because they're the ones that need to be worried about reads and signals and really kind of making some of those defensive checks from their positions. And it's nice to have a second coach that can focus solely on the corners. The other thing Brandon Shelby talked to me about today was that because a lot of his guys, Lawrence Barnett's coming back over from safety and Lanyata Kyles is coming back over from safety, because those guys played safety and they're familiar with that position, which requires a lot more sort of checking and reading of an offense and of a formation and reacting to what they see and how it changes, in the pre-snap reads. He thinks that that's really going to help too, to have guys that have the safety experience but are coming to corner, so that they'll be able to make those reads and they'll have that sort of mental part of the game, but they'll be in a place that's a little bit more natural to them. I know Lawrence Barnett said today that it's, he didn't mind moving to safety last year, but he really is more comfortable at corner. That's where he was recruited. That's where he played initially, and that's where he's going to be back this year. That's what he feels like is in his natural position. So, I think that the potential is there for improvement. Certainly, again, I think the two coaches there really helps, but day 2 of fall camp, it's hard to tell just yet.
Yeah, the guys weren't even in pads today. But before we go, I wanted to ask you about the latest commitment of IU football. It's also a secondary edition. Smith from Ohio.
Sebastian Smith.
You want to comment on him a little bit?
Yeah, I haven't seen Sebastian Smith too much. He's a big kid for a safety, about 6'2", 6'3", good body. I know I've talked to Steve Wiltfong, who saw him at a camp at Ohio State earlier this summer. He was MVP, defensive MVP there. He really stood out there. This was back when he was just kind of mentioning Indiana interest and all that. I think maybe even before he picked up an offer. I'm not totally sure on that, but and I was talking to some people who were there who told me that Indiana should take a good long look at him, because he had a really, really good camp there, showed out really well. So a little bit unexpected. I'm not sure if anyone expected him to commit today, but pulled the trigger, and now they got 2 safeties in that class. So,
well, that's all we've got today. You can pick up the latest news on IU football and basketball and recruiting from the InsideIndiana.com team at 24/7 Sports. And for Zach Osterman, I'm in Magoni. We're outside Memorial Stadium. Have a good one.